Before we do that, are we live?
No, working on it.
These other things for me to sign from
I just want to.
You're good. Make a motion that we bring the February 18th Police Commission meeting to order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You guys want to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I in charge of this? Or?
Any one of us can. No, it's up to you. I saw you organizing your paper,
Yeah,
so I was
so,
just trying to get you going there.
So, yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you don't.
can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Do we have any items to add to the agenda? No?
You just approved it.
All right, great. Public input? Anyone? Anyone? All right, announcements? All right, new business? Moving along.
So, your packets should include two reports. The first was from December. In that report, there were 5 commendations, 2 defensive action reports, injury to a member that was listed, as well as all the other items. I know the chief included a cover sheet with that as well, to give you all a little bit of information, a summary of what is included in each report. Sorry.
Is that better?
Okay, sorry. So, as far as commendations go, there was a letter to the New Paltz Times that was written by a resident regarding officers who had responded and assisted with provided medical assistance to a local resident during the early morning hours. That resident was then turned over to the New Paltz Rescue Squad. There should be a letter in your packet from Detective Sergeant Butler from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. This is regarding a survey or study that they are doing. Back in 2007, we had an incident that occurred during the early morning hours in the middle school field where an individual had committed suicide after shooting his estranged wife at a residence nearby. And the Center for Disease Control has learned about that and asked for information regarding that for something that they're working on, so we provided that information to them. The next thing you read is an email or text message that was sent. This is regarding a robbery at the post office in Rifton back in December. Our officers, Sergeant Lewis, along with Officers Krause and Carpinelli, had responded, but it's actually Sergeant Lewis who observed the vehicle as it was traveling on 32 North and made the initial stop on that vehicle, and this was just a thank you from the Sheriff's Office. The next letter was from a resident, and it's for Officer Ron Stroh. During the early morning hours, Officer Stroh had observed a cat that was struck by a vehicle. He was able to locate the owner of this cat and was able to provide her with directions and assistance in getting the cat to the Kingston Animal Hospital. So she was that. And then there was another email thanking us, in particular Officer Quigley, and one of her FTOs. I'm not really sure who she was riding with that day, but they handled a domestic disturbance, and this was a letter of thank you for the way they conducted themselves and helped out them. We had 2 incidences that involved the use of defensive action. The first took place on on December 19th, 2015. It was involved an arrest for DWI and resisting. It was a 23-year-old white female, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, 145 pounds, medium build. In this particular case, this woman was being taken into custody for DWI and had refused to comply with verbal directives, and they used a wrist lock in order to gain control and to place her in handcuffs. The second defensive action, the second case involving defensive action, there are actually 8 reports. This is pertaining to the post office robbery in Rifton. The vehicle that was stopped was occupied by 4 people. Each of those individuals was removed from the vehicle at gunpoint. We call it a felony stop. So for each of those occupants, a defensive action report was filed for them by each of the officers involved. In this case, it was Sergeant Lewis and Officer Kraus. Again, this was one of the individuals involved was a black male, approximately 5'10", 157 pounds, medium build. The other was a 25-year-old female, about 4 feet, 11 inches tall, 140 pounds. And then the next one was for a male subject, 21 years of age, black male, 6 feet, 230 pounds. And then the last was a 5'10" black male, approximately 215 pounds, medium build. And that would be the same on the other 4 defensive action reports. Any questions on that or anything else in the December report? Bear with me, I'm not too good at this. I'm just
You're better than I do.
get my feet wet. And then in the month of January, one thing that needed to be corrected, there were actually 4 complaints. I'm going to review those with you in executive session, but there were 4, not 2 complaints. There were 4 commendations, 3 defensive action reports, in addition to what you have out here. As far as the letters of commendation go, the first was for Officer Fuco and Officer Koch. They responded to a medical here in town and provided care, and then turned the patient over to the New Paltz Rescue Squad. And the family here wanted to thank the officers for the job that they did and helping them with that day. The next is a letter of thanks from Dave Dugakin, the chief over at the SUNY New Paltz Police Department. This is in regards to the active shooter training that all of our members went through beginning of January. Detective Sergeant Butler and Detective Judge actually helped SUNY set up the entire training as far as the scenarios go, and Detective Sergeant Butler was actually an instructor for all 4 sessions of this. So this was the chief thanking us for all that. The next was for Officer Quigley. It's a thank you note that was sent to the chief regarding Officers Quigley and Redmond. They had assisted a resident with a flat tire. The resident actually had a sick pet in the car, and they helped get them on their way. The next is a letter that was sent to the chief for his attending the nonviolent conflict resolution through forgiveness training at the Roundout Valley High School. And that was back in beginning of January, breaking the cycle. Any questions on any of this? Okay. There were 3 cases where defensive action was used. In the first case, and again, bear with me, I'm just going through it rather quickly. There was 1 defensive action report. The suspect was a black female, approximately 5 feet 4 inches tall, 250 pounds, 27 years of age. She was being arrested for trespass and disorderly conduct at a local establishment and ended up fighting with the officer. The officer deployed OC as well as physical direction in order to cuff this individual. The next
Just real quick
Yes,
on
sir.
that one time, this is unfortunately, I know in the past couple of months, we've had to deploy OC spray, and no one used it. Turned out it was very effective and unfortunately needed. Is there anything we need to do to work with our bars before it gets to the point where we have to have our officers go and put themselves at risk? Using the OC spray.
Based on that particular and what we have.
Here's one a couple months ago, unfortunately.
The bars are doing the job that they should be. We actually have the chief has actually been in contact with the Downtown Tavern Owners Association to be setting up a meeting. I think he's trying to set something up in the next couple of weeks, but just as a normal touching base, nothing that's out of the norm that we encounter. A lot of this is just these are just individuals that are, they're fighting with the bar staff, and the staff is actually calling us and doing the right thing, and then turning those individuals over to us who are continuing to be combative. So,
So it's working good?
yeah, no, I think it is.
Good, thank you.
This
I
net.
have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is OC pepper spray?
It's Oleoreza capsicum. It's a pepper spray that we use. The next defensive action is for an incident charges with disorderly conduct, reckless endangering of property, resisting arrest, and harassment. The defendant in this particular case was a 25-year-old female, approximately 4 feet 2 inches tall, 180 pounds, of medium build. This started again where we were called for a disorderly patron. She was combative with the initially responding officer, who was able to cuff her. They got her into his police car. Was trying to close the door. She would not seat herself all the way in the vehicle. Another officer tried to intervene. She then kicked at that officer, but was ultimately brought into the car and continued to be combative at the station. So there were a couple different defensive actions for this one individual. And again, the first was for a pain compliance or a takedown, was the initial. And then the use of the asp or the baton was when the defendant was kicking at the officers as they were trying to get her in the vehicle. And then at the station, she needed to be restrained as well and attempted to strike and kick at the officers while she was in the station. And then there's the next case was 3 defensive actions for this. Similar in the circumstances, the fact that the individual continued to be combative throughout the entire process. This was a 53-year-old woman, white female, approximately 5'2", 125 pounds. She was arrested for driving while intoxicated, criminal possession of a controlled substance, unlawful possession of marijuana, and resisting arrest. She refused to comply with verbal directions out of the scene when she was initially stopped and had to be physically removed from the vehicle. And then during the time that she was being processed, she had asked to use the restrooms, and she was brought to the restrooms on several occasions. And each time that she was brought there, she was combative with the officers. So they had to use to control in order to get her back to the bench and to restrain her there. Any questions on any of this? I think that's it.
If you know if there's any questions that you wanted us to go into executive session?
Yes, just to go over some of the personnel complaints, and with that.
So I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session, inviting along Lieutenant Lucchese to discuss personnel issues.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll be back. I make a motion to come out of executive session.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
No action was taken by the town council in executive session. And else Neil have anything else or anything?
So, I'd like to make a motion we adjourn the police commission meeting.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Off to coach YBA.
There you go. I was going to say adjourn. Gates
We got girls' games tonight.
David, you need. That's fine. I'm good with that too. I'm good with that. Yeah, the board. Yeah. I'm ready to go.
So I'd like to open up the continuation of the public hearing on the proposed water district number 5. All in favor? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So if anyone has any comments, please come to the microphone and state your name and your address, and we'd like to hear what you have to say.
Anyone wants to go right to the...
And so just so people know, we would like it if you would go to the microphone so we can get you on tape and so we can hear you. So. And your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Ingrid Beer, and my address is 117 Plains Road. I know we all want this to work, and we're one town, and we should be unified, but I feel that there's been a big rush to create this water system without the proper study. And I think that this has shown what's happened in other communities across the country, including Flint. This is the exact thing that happened. There was not enough proper study and there was rush. And what we're going through here is going to affect the entire town of New Paltz, and enough study needs to be done with an event that's going to affect everyone in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sue Weber. I live at 130 Plains Road. One of the requirements of the seeker law is that the residents of the proposed water district number 5 are benefited by the municipal water system. I am a resident and I am not benefited. I have a new well and a new water filter system which cost me thousands of dollars. And now, if the water district goes through, I will be charged for my water usage and for the upkeep and repairs of the water system. Don't tell me that I can opt out of the municipal system and continue to use my own well, because just during the short testing of the water capacity of 101 Plains Road, my well water was adversely affected. No one knows what will happen to wells when 400 gallons per minute is pumped from the 101 Plains for weeks at a time. So opting out of municipal water is a pipe dream, no pun intended, for most residents. My main concern is the health and viability of the aquifer on 101 Plains Road. It's incumbent upon residents to speak out against a project which could adversely affect our water sources for years to come. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gray Rice. I'm founder of Honeybee Lives at 133 Plains Road. I know that there have been a lot of people who are new here to the board, and I'm new to these meetings, but you all are going to be making a decision that is going to affect us for the rest of our lives, and a very important neighborhood, as well as potentially affecting the whole town and village of New Paltz. I have letters that I'm going to hand to everybody that I've collected from some of our community members who are really against this, firmly against it, and some of the people are absolutely exhausted and have not written a letter. But I know you're near your decision-making point, so please bear with me if I read this letter. We all realize that the village of New Paltz is under time pressure to secure a temporary water supply during the 10-week shutdowns of the Catskill Aqueduct. If a temporary water supply is needed, then the establishment of a new water district that will remain in effect in place for the rest of eternity is unwarranted and will negatively impact many of us. Chris Harp and Gray Rice from Honeybee Lives are firmly against the formation of Water District 5, as are many of our community members. We have each purchased our properties on this country road outside of the village and do not want our home ownership or our wells to be undermined and compromised. Water District 5 does not benefit us personally in any way. It will in fact do irrevocable harm to our property and negatively impact our livelihood, which is a honeybee farm. Additionally, the removal and/or damage of many neighborhood trees as a result of the project will eliminate invaluable forage for the important pollinators that we tend at Honeybee Lives Apiary and at Taliaferro's farm. We do not benefit from our sweet water being pulled from under our feet and sold back to us as processed water. We do not benefit from the unknown financial consequences of Water District maintenance requirements in the future. We do not benefit from the threat of bad water or broken promises. We do not benefit from the reality that no one knows if the aquifer can really supply what it is expected to supply. Here's a quote from the State Environmental Quality Review document. This backup water supply is restricted to operate no more than once per year and not following periods of below average precipitation. Well, we had that this past year. It was really dry. What happens then? Our property at 133 Plains Road is surrounded by tall trees along the road frontage and surrounding the entire house in every direction. There is no safe access for a water main along the road nor to the house without drastically changing the character of our property and also jeopardizing our house due to weakened trees. We cannot afford the financial burden of expensive tree work that would be required. It would also break our hearts to be forced to alter our property that Chris has lived at for 37 years as a result of a new water district. That would be inevitable. Establishing Water District 5 along Plains Road community will destabilize a grand old nature of our road and the personal properties along it for a quick fix. Please do not let this happen.
Carol Pryor, I reside at 150 Plains Road. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My comments relate to the 5 to 6 year no water bill provision for the residents of proposed Water District Number 5. I do not feel that the 5 to 6 no water bill provision offered by the New York City DEP is adequate compensation to the residents of the Plains Road community who are essentially being forced onto a municipal water supply system. I believe the no water bill provision should be extended based on consideration of the following 3 events. Please note the extent that that extension is governed by the single event that occurs first. Number 1, extension of the 6-year provision to 20 years, or until the residential property within Water District 5 is sold, or until there is a transfer of ownership other than by sale of property. The only exception to this transfer is a transfer of ownership occurring as a result of the death of one spouse, provided at the time of death the deceased is jointly listed on the property deed. Following the sequence of the above events, the maximum no water bill financial responsibility for DEP and/or the town will not exceed 20 years. I do not feel it is unreasonable that special consideration be given to the residents of proposed Water District Number 5. The basis for the formation of Water District Number 5 does not follow the classic boilerplate for the establishment of a municipal water district. The rationale for Water District Number 5 is not based on the actual needs of the residents living within the boundaries of proposed Water District 5, but for the benefit of those residents living outside of those defined boundaries. The sole reason for the establishment of Water District Number 5 is for the benefit of village residents and to a lesser extent a small portion of town residents due to the anticipated 3 10-week shutdowns of the Catskill Aqueduct. The creation of Water District 5 is merely being offered in exchange for the imposed sacrifice of our private wells. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ted Pryor. I live at 150 Plains Road, following my wife here. Earlier this week, Neil and my wife sent to you, and maybe you have a draft of it, and we had a chance to read. But it was a report from Paul Rubin that reviewed the large report that was prepared by David. And what I want to do is just clarify to the new members of the board that it has been quoted from Paul's report that his findings were for a 10-week temporary period that the applicant would be sufficient. But what he also, and that's been quoted a few times, so I asked Paul that, I said, well, this doesn't seem to work in our benefit because we obviously don't support this. And what he clarified for me is that, yes, he did say that. But however, he also feels that the steady and steep drop rate of the slope, some of the charts in that report, show that the aquifer's discharge at 400 gallons per minute, what's required, can be sustained in a long term, that was beyond the 10 weeks. Very we really don't know. And also that the safe yield, therefore, of the sand and gravel aquifer hasn't been determined. And something I wanted to mention is that this is based, and the large 700-page report on 72-hour testing. When you go into 10 weeks, 1,680. So you got 96% more demand on the aquifer than what we're looking at or has been proposed for the recommendation to proceed with this. So to me, if you're going to use it for more than 10 weeks or as a backup water supply emergency and it goes beyond 10 weeks, there's a lot of risk to that. I think you need to consider that before you go on further. And when you consider what happened to some houses, 3 houses lost the water in just 72 hours or less, to me that says there's a lot more risk here than even what I think portrayed. So as new members, I want to share that with you, and whatever considerations you make, you have that in mind. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hello, Donna Liebman, 118 Plains Road. My comments and question are in regard to the report from that was written by Paul Rubin that you recently received. That report has been submitted to the village board previous to the most recent election, the current village board, the town board previous to the most recent election, and this town board. And not once has it ever been acknowledged, the information has ever been acknowledged, except for the fact that, as Ted said, Paul Rubin noted that 10 weeks, that the aquifer could supply water for 10 weeks. That was the only comment that has been quoted from Paul's report. So I have a question for you, and that is, have you read the report?
Yes.
Okay. And does it raise any questions in your mind? My point is this. Mr. Klauser is the expert on whom you rely. Mr. Klauser and his associates came to certain conclusions. Okay. We hired people on Plains Road, spent thousands of dollars of our own money to hire Mr. Rubin to assess the exact same information that Mr. Klauser and his associates developed. Mr. Rubin's conclusions are almost 100% directly opposed to the conclusions that Mr. Klauser came to. And in my experience, if I'll use a medical analogy, if I go to a doctor who I've relied on for a long time, and he says, all right, you've got something wrong and you need to have major surgery. Well, I've relied on that doctor for a long time, but major surgery is a big deal. I'm going to go get another opinion. So I go to another expert. The second expert says something that's diametrically opposed to the first expert. Me, I would go and get a tiebreaker opinion. And that's what I don't understand, is why with all four boards, or four versions of our town and village boards, there doesn't appear to be any questions in the minds of the people sitting on the board. And I don't get that. And if you could explain that to me, I would really appreciate it.
This is public comment, so we're just taking public comment during this is part of the process, so this is a public hearing.
We're not supposed to talk back and forth, I apologize.
And I understand that that's how public hearings work. And we, you have a role, you have an official role to fill. We're members, we're members of the public. We're bringing our concerns. At some point, there ought to be a real dialogue. There hasn't been one. And I understand that as, in your official roles, you've got to be careful what you say, there's no libel or all different kinds of legal things like that. I get it. But when do we get to be real with each other? When? You can't answer, you're not going to answer? Okay. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Gail Friedman, 121 Plains Road. First of all, I'd like to suggest that there was a program on NPR earlier this week on the takeaway that I would consider mandatory listening for anyone who's concerned with the water issue right now. And it was about water as America's next civil rights battle. And I think it's pretty apt in a lot of ways, and I think we're living it right here. And it's not just Flint, and it's not just Hoosick Falls, and it's not just West Virginia, and it's not just California, but this is going on all over the country. And if we can't rely on our public officials, and quite honestly, we don't have a lot of faith that we can, then I don't know where we are. Specifically, the New York State Health Department in the Hoosick Falls case was assuring people that their water was just fine until the EPA finally stepped in and said, this is completely toxic and you can't drink this. As some of my neighbors just pointed out, there's been a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of concerns raised going back almost 2 years now. And there's been virtually no response in a real dialogue way that really speaks to this. So we don't really labor under the illusions that that's about to change now, but we're putting it on the record, and we see that you issued a neg deck, which was hardly a surprise. It ignores any number of issues, beginning with, but certainly not ending with, the destruction of trees along the road, which you yourselves acknowledge is going to take place. And there are the rules. All owners are not benefited, as has been stated. All of those who are benefited are not within the district. In our opinion, and based on so much of the data that we've collected, this is not in the public interest writ large. It is not at all clear that this aquifer can sustain. No safe yield has been established. There's only been lip service presented in terms of considering other options, and here we are. It may appear that it's over, but it's not over. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Larriman, 1 Woodland Drive. Been a lot of comments again tonight. And I just want to go back to one about public benefit. I think when you hear the phrase public benefit, which comes out of the water supply law and the water supply regulations, they're not talking about individual benefits to individual well owners or property owners. They are talking about the public in general. And when a municipality acts to create a water district, they're looking at the greater good for the larger number of people in a particular area that might be impacted by something, whether it's a pollution problem, or in this case, a pumping problem that's going to affect many wells, or potentially affect many wells. So when looking at the public good, we're looking at the good for, the greater good for the public at large, not individual people. So if one or more individuals within this water district feels that it doesn't directly benefit them, that's not saying that the phrase in the law is wrong. It's saying that the board should be looking at the phrase in the law and looking at the public benefit for the greater good for the people in this proposed water district. Now, going back to that for a moment, I want to say that there are a number of people, and unfortunately, some of them aren't here tonight, but have serious water problems already and are happy that the water district is coming. It's a happy coincidence for them because they have to treat their water expensively, repeatedly. They have serious problems with the water, and sometimes even that isn't adequate to give them the water that they're looking for. So there are a number of people, and I think that's why there was so many names on that petition, that there are a number of people that are looking forward to this water district and think that it is a benefit for the public in that area. It's unfortunate that some folks feel it doesn't individually benefit them, and that's why we have government, that's why we have people come together and form a government, that's why we have government take action for the greater good of a larger number of people. Otherwise, we'd all be out on the frontier just keeping everybody off our property and there'd be no organized community. So greater good means exactly what it says, and public benefit does not mean that it has to benefit every single individual in the district. Although there has to be respect for their rights, for their property rights, etc. That doesn't mean the government should run roughshod over someone. So there are a number of folks in this proposed water district that are very interested in seeing that this happens because they do have serious problems and they would definitely benefit from this. And secondly, the pumping of the wells is likely to have a very definite impact on even people with good well water. So there is a public benefit to providing this water district in advance of the pumping, which seems inevitable because the aqueduct has to shut down, the village has to find another source, and the time is running out. I would back to the 72-hour pump test for a moment. That's a long-standing standard for how to decide whether an aquifer can provide a sustained amount of water. It's like a stress test when you go to your doctor's office. And you don't have to pump for 10 months or 10 weeks to find out if it'll be able to pump 10 weeks. You pump it at this intense rate for a specific period of time. You measure the drawdown, and it's used statewide. In fact, I think at least 10 states in the Northeast and Midwest use this standard over and over again, and it's widely accepted. So it's like so many other things, you don't have to test something to death to find out how long it could actually last or what could it actually sustain. I apologize I didn't come here with an organized statement. I'm just responding to some of the things I've heard tonight. I don't want to get too much into this, but in New York State, although you have a right to the water underneath your property, the state, through the municipalities around the state, have a right to make use of that water. And if I wanted to pump my well a lot, my private well, and it affected my immediate neighbors, I mean, they don't have a right to say that's my water. Water is a movable resource underground, and the state can step in and regulate who takes it and how they take it. And that was the creation of the water district, water supply laws back in the turn of the last century. So it's not something where any of us have absolute right over the water under our property, particularly because we share it with our neighbors, maybe sometimes many neighbors, thousands of neighbors. So we have a right to the water. Government steps in when neighbors can't agree on how to share the water and either authorizes water districts or water companies in some cases. The state can authorize water companies to serve a certain area. So these are all long-standing ways that we've organized ourselves going back to the late 19th, early 20th centuries. This is not something totally new, and again, it is for the public benefit. There will definitely be benefits, and there are definitely citizens who want to see this water district happen. So I'm going to stop rambling, and thank you for listening.
I'm Perry from New Paltz, and I was really determined to sit in the corner and be quiet this time. But I do want to just point out a larger potential public benefit for some of the people who are new to the table. But first I want to say this, I have great respect, and I think everyone should have great respect for the people on both sides of the issue from Plains Road, the Plains Road area. It's really hard to come and do this, and to do this over and over again, and do this against daunting odds. I really respect their approach to democracy and their approach to citizenship. If something should occur where this Plan A is problematical or is not able to go forward, I just want to point out that there would be great public benefit in Plan B. And I mentioned it last session we had here, and a gentleman, it was essentially to use the resource we have running through the center of our community, the Wallkill River. A gentleman, a colleague of mine, I'm kind of a little schizophrenic on this issue because I'm looking to clean the Wallkill with the Wallkill River Alliance. I'm also looking to drink the Wallkill, so that's a little interesting set of positions to have. Made the statement that there was some possibility that Wallkill would be rated as an impaired water source. And that may or may not be so. It's really irrelevant. The city of Poughkeepsie has been drinking the Hudson River for a long time, even in the worst of days. And it's not like the EPA rules say, well, it's a little dirty, so you only need to clean it a little bit. The drinking water standards in this country are the envy of the world. And anything that goes into a treatment plant comes out crystal clear, no matter how it started. So I just want to remind people of that. The quick point I want to make is if we were to need another option, the treatment plant that we currently have in the village would need no capital improvements, no excess cost to be able to treat the water. What would cost would be a pump station and the pipes to bring the water up to and from the treatment plant. Even that would cost less than the Plan A that you're talking about now. And the public benefit would be, if we become like California, if we get a drought state, we would have the infrastructure in place. We would have a permanent source of water, not for 10 years, but for as far as you can see in the future. And that's a real public benefit. The world is getting drier. We may get drier sometime. And it doesn't make sense to wait for a crisis to try to make the moves that you can make. We have the treatment plant in place to achieve this work. People throw up objections about getting approval from regulators. And anecdotally, before this became political, certain regulators said that they would move heaven and hell to make sure things got approved. They're not saying anymore, but I just want to let people know that Plan A, if these people are successful, and there is some reason that Plan A doesn't go, there is a viable Plan B. And I look forward to working with you, whatever happens. We're all friends and colleagues. We can disagree and still be good. So I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Don. So if we have no more comments, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing on proposed Water District 5.
Second.
Discussion.
And then, not just for tonight, or do we?
Close it.
Close it. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. And make a motion to open the town board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Pledge of allegiance again.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to add one item to it.
I'll second that for purposes of
Sorry. Yes, I would like to add allocating funds for the demolition of the old town hall building.
I would like to add a section about adopting formally Robert's Rules of Order. It's often done at reorg meetings. And then I'll throw this up for discussion before we add it for a discussion item, is that we had talked about doing committee and board updates. Do we want to do that tonight, or maybe do it next week? So I don't know if anyone's prepared for it, but I'd just like to start this out of that.
Okay, we'll have that discussion. Or do you want to just talk about it? And add it next week? We have a long night.
Let's add it next week, but I just want to throw it out. That's it for me.
All in favor?
Well, before, I'm just looking at it here, I see, am I missing the water district on? Like,
Yeah, so let's add that
I thought it was
Dave's.
on a version that got sent to us, I know it was on there, so I don't know.
Wasn't online.
Yeah.
So let's add, yeah.
So add the review of proposal for secret review of the backup water supply project for New Paltz.
Is the actual water district on there?
No, and so I think we're going to get a presentation from Dave as well. So let's add, can we put them
The
all
secret
under?
review and,
Yes.
and
Yep.
the water district
And the water
itself.
I want to go over the secret review of supply of backup water supply system and the water district product.
Did the public know that we were going to do that tonight?
No.
No.
It's not online, it's not on the agenda.
Let's not do it again. Just.
Can we,
I just was checking.
it was on one of the agendas, but then,
The neighborhood knows about it.
I thought they needed to.
it was nice, right?
We have a copy of the agenda that we
There's no public hearing necessary for the seeker. I just,
I just thought they needed.
So, do I have an approval of the agenda? We have a vote? Do we want to add those? We don't need to notify anyone for the seeker, right?
Right.
Okay.
No,
So,
no.
okay, so let's,
No, and then also the Water District 5, establishment of Water District 5 also.
okay, so I had Water District 5. So,
Motion second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. And I'd like to open the room for public comment, so if anyone has comments, they can come up to the microphone and state your name and your address.
Donna Liebman, 118 Plains Road. My question is in regards to the difference between a public hearing and public comment at a regular meeting. The last public hearing we had, I should have said this before when I was standing here, the last public hearing we had on this issue, there was dialogue. What happened just previous to this new meeting now is just like public comment. Just wanted to point that out. I guess you can't answer the question.
So I'm just making a general statement. The policy of this board is that when we have public hearings and we have public comment, we don't engage in the back and forth. And the reason also why we don't do that is because then you set that precedent that no matter what it is, you're going to have that back and forth. You're correct that that did happen at a previous meeting. It probably shouldn't have. What I would say too is that I know everyone who works in this board, and if there's ever anyone that wants to meet with a member of the board to talk to something, and that's myself included, send us a message, and I'm happy to go to anyone's home or meet them at any time. We hold meetings in public. They're not necessarily public meetings. We do allow that time for people to speak. That's just kind of how town board meetings operate. But relative to speaking to your representatives, again, I think I can speak for everyone and say, reach out to us, call us. Our information is on the internet. I'm always willing to meet someone.
Carol Cryer, Plains Road resident. I find it very upsetting, and this has happened on more than one occasion, where a pertinent subject relating to the Plains Road Water District Number 5 is not posted to the revised agenda, which I printed just before I came here, but is added at the meeting. I'm sorry, but I think you do a great disservice to the public by, I'm sorry.
I know you can't answer this because you can't talk back to me, but I don't understand what the difference is between us coming up and making a statement a few minutes ago and now. It's really perplexing. I don't know how things operate, but does that mean that whatever I said before is discounted? I'm not sure I understand.
I'd just like to reiterate what Sue and a few other people have said, which is, it's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not the fifth time, it's not the 10th time that, gosh, at 7 p.m., a brand-new agenda item about the water district magically appears on the agenda. You obviously knew this discussion was going to take place tonight, and it really is disrespectful at minimum, could use stronger language at a maximum, to conduct public business in this way.
New topic. Donald Kirk from New Paltz. So I made a statement at the last joint meeting, and I repeated it at the last village meeting, and it kind of annoyed some people. The statement was, in terms of environmental policies, I made the statement that the village was like California. And that caused some people to feel I may have been disrespecting the town as not being as environmentally sensitive or conscious as the village. So I didn't mean to cause offense. In my mind, a very good example, just one, and there's probably many on both sides, but one example is that the village has a plastic bag ban. The town does not. When those topics were discussed, and this is going back to the last board, there was at least one board member who was caustically opposed to the concept, and made it very clear that it was not something that board would be in favor of. So I'd like to take what may have been offensive and turn it into a challenge. I'd like to suggest, propose, and encourage the town of New Paltz to prove me wrong. Prove that you are as environmentally sensitive as the village. The two biggest purveyors of plastic bags in our community are ShopRite and Shop and Stop. They're not in the village, they're in the town. Hey guys, step up. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Friendly challenge.
Let me see my board back. I have more than I think the next is, there are no more public comments. I move that we move on to announcements.
Any announcements, Brian?
Any announcements? All right. We have the reading and the approval of the minutes from January 21st and the 22nd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from those two dates?
Second.
Do we have discussion? Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Can I suggest that since we have a lot of people here who wants to hear the Zoom discussion, that we move that up, and table James' comptroller report to one?
Okay. What do you want to move up?
I'd like to do the Plains Road discussion.
Sure. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So I think the first discussion we should go through then would be, Joe Morello here with Dave Klauser here, would be the seeker, which is the New Paltz Backup Water Supply Project. And that is the one dated February 10th, 2016. You all have copies of it in your mailbox. And Dave was invited tonight to go through a version of it and answer any questions anyone has on the secret process. So, Dave, you want to first walk us through what we're looking at here?
Sure. The board has some handouts here. I think I'll just follow this as I go through it. What I'm trying to do is provide a summary of this document. This document has the part 1, 2, and 3 of the EAF, and then it has some attachments for the, a lot of it is species reports from the agencies. There's also the hydrogeological report from the 2014 report as an appendix, and also the water quality information for the wells that will be used is in the very back of it. I'd like to just give some information on the process, what was conducted for this particular project, the way we went about the environmental review, talk about some of the findings that we came up with in the process, and then talk about the determination of significance of what the project would have as far as potential for environmental impacts. The process included classifying the action, which was done back in September, I believe. That was completed. We identified the project and its setting in the part 1, which is the first 20-some pages here of this form. We circulated that to the involved and interested agencies. I believe there were 23 agencies that was circulated to, as I recall. And we did get back, I think, about 5 or 6 responses from the agencies. Nobody wanted to be the lead agent on this project. What a surprise. But the way we went through this project is, this is an unclassified action under seeker. There's nothing here that would trip this into a type 1 action. I talked to the DEC about this. They even thought that parts of it was a type 2 that needed no seeker review. Nevertheless, the town does want to do a thorough job on that, so we classified it. We considered it a type 1 for the way we went about it. The EAF for unclassified action is 4 pages long. The EAF for Part 3 is 23 pages long, or it's 23 pages long, not including the Part 3, which is, I believe, here another 12 pages. So we really did try to take a good look at everything we could see that maybe would have some kind of impact here. The 30-day period, as I said, is completed. The town board can assume lead agency now. I want to talk about the way we went about identifying potential impacts. And then in the seeker process, you take a look at all of the impacts that are considered either moderate to large, and you explain those in a Part 3 and look if there's, to see if there's any mitigation, any way to avoid those impacts or any way to reduce those impacts. So that's in the Part 3 that you've looked at. I just want to briefly go through the Part 1, for example. We looked at all aspects of the projects and all the sites where the project activities were going to occur. We had field people out looking for threatened and endangered species, wetlands, floodplains. We went to environmental databases to try to see any listed species that were in the area. So when we went out and did the field investigation, we really knew what to look for. The Part 1 identified all of the project details, the areas of disturbance, the operations, the land uses near the project locations, all the natural and cultural resources, and any sites. When we got out there to look to see if there was anything that was missing in the databases but could be seen when we were at doing the site investigation. The next page is just a copy of the project locations. You see in the upper right or upper left-hand corner is the village reservoirs. It's the Turk property on the east side of the thruway. The Plains Road Water District 5. And then there's a little area here that's a town park. We have sediment from the reservoirs that we need to dispose of, and we have a need for material to build soccer fields at the town park. On the Part 2, we looked at the inventory of the potential resources that could be affected. Again, we searched the databases, state, federal, and local, for natural and cultural resources. We confirmed this inventory by the field investigation, as I mentioned, and documented any other resources that we thought might be affected. Part of completing that Part 2 is to categorize any impacts that are possible. You have seen in the Part 2 form that there's thresholds under the different impact items, and you look at those and see if you meet any of those thresholds. Some of those thresholds are like parking for more than 1,000 cars, which obviously we're not worried about here. We went to the Part 3, and again, the Part 3 is the determination of the significance. We take everything that was a moderate to large impact, categorized that way, and did an explanation on that. We also took a lot of the small impacts, as you'll see in that Part 3 that we wrote up, to explain why we came up with those categorization that it was a small impact. We tried to discuss how these potential impacts might be avoided or reduced with project measures that would be incorporated in the project design. And then we also tried to consider whether the impact, after mitigated or avoided, would be considered significant. The next page and the 2 pages afterwards look at the items that were considered moderate to large impact. When we considered the significance, we were considering the setting, the probability of the occurrence, the duration, the irreversibility, the geographic scope, and its magnitude. I'll go through kind of quickly here. As an example, for a moderate to large was on the land impact, bedrock removal may be required. There's, according to the soil mapping, there's about 5% of the project that has bedrock that is at shallow depth. The removal methods will be not blasting. The shallow depth will not require that, and it's a very small volume. It'll be very temporary. It's going to be done and ended. The land, next one is the land removal, an estimated 5,400 cubic yards of sediment. The sediment is going to be tested for quality before it's disposed of, again transported to the town sports park for use as fill material that we've been looking for. Surface water, the construction is going to happen in a stream because we're going to remove sediment from the reservoirs. There's a stream that feeds that. We have methods to be able to keep from making the water turbid, putting in turbidity curtains, and also divert the stream while we're taking the sediment out. Groundwater, the impact was may require new wells or create additional demand on supplies for existing wells. The reason for the determination of non-significance is the existing water supply customers will continue to receive public water service. The new water districts will be established to provide a continuous public water service in those new water district areas, and the additional demand will be met with new supply sources. The withdrawal rates have been tested and proven to meet that the water supply will meet the needs of the community during the aqueduct shutdown. And I think I'd just like to add that there has been a third opinion on the reports as far as the hydrogeological reports. Our hydrogeologist, Russell Urban Mead, did 72 plus another 24-hour test on the wells, wrote a report. He worked very closely with the DEC to make sure that all the DEC protocols were followed. He submitted that report to the DEC to see if they agreed with his findings, and they did. So there has been more than just differing opinions here. And again, the copy of the well test is attached to support that finding of non-significance. The other issue that came up was there's an item of the water supply are from wells that are located in an area that may be suspected to be contaminated. This has to do with the Turk property. There's a brownfield cleanup plan that's been started on that property. They have an application and remediation has not been done yet. We looked at that very closely. I think I've given the board a copy of the map. This red area shows the area of contaminated soils, and the square in the upper left corner, which is the southwest corner of the property, is where the wells are located that will be used. It's well over 500 feet from the area that was contaminated by pesticide from the old orchards in the past. I also provided the water quality data in the back of the report on those wells, and there was no arsenic levels that were above the drinking water standards. The next item was under flooding, and are the dams in need of repair or upgrade? The dams, I have the copies of the DEC's reports for the last several years on the dam inspections, and they continue to say that they're well maintained. They're in good condition and well maintained, and part of this project is doing a very detailed dam engineering assessment to make sure that they are in good condition. We are planning to put flashboards in to increase the volume storage there. That is included, the dam assessment is included as part of this project. The last threshold here was on human health, and the threshold was if the project is located within 1,500 feet of a school, hospital, licensed daycare center, group home, nursing home, or retirement community. It turns out there are 5 daycare centers or schools within that 1,500-foot area of the project activities. There's a map in the an attachment to the report that shows where those are. None of them are really very close there, but they are within that 1,500 feet. There's also Mountain View Nursing and Rehab is located, looks like 1,200 feet to the closest construction, planned construction there. The concern there is noise. The noise would certainly be temporary and would only occur during working hours. It's something that will happen. Based on the information that resulted from the project's environmental inventory and an environmental database review, the field investigation conducted, the identification of potential adverse environmental impacts, the analysis of those impacts, and in consideration of mitigation measures in the project design that will be used to avoid or reduce impacts, it does not appear that the proposed action will result in any significant adverse impacts. If the board agrees with that conclusion, then the negative declaration which Attorney Rodenhausen has prepared, which details and much more than this, of course, why that determination makes sense. The board can consider that. I will say that Mountain View Nursing Home was added to that neg deck. It's on the next to last page there. So you have a new neg deck with one new sentence. Shown in yellow.
So I was unaware that this was not on the agenda prior. I mean, we did know that this item was coming up, and that was not an intentional thing. We have a meeting next Thursday. I would like to request that we hold off on taking any board action until our Thursday meeting to allow the public additional opportunity to come out and speak and to be able to be here. That was an honest mistake, and I think that we can easily rectify that.
I support that. I would just wonder, they can speak during public comment, right? It doesn't have to be, there's really not a difference between public hearing and public comment.
There's a legal
We don't-
requirement to have a public hearing
Right.
and public comment.
Right.
It's just-
So there is a difference,
Yeah,
but I
there is a
mean, they can, the time, the public comment period can be
Public can
used.
still come and speak. And I agree that it was frustrating during the previous board where that happened as well. It's not the intention, right? At least just speaking for myself, I think it's big for everyone for that to happen again. So, yeah, I'd like us to delay that unless there's.
So we have the first, Julie, is that a second?
Oh, yes.
All in favor?
Additional
Is
conversation.
any more discussion?
And again, discussion is we are not reopening then the public hearing on the secret finding. We would just be taking additional.
I think, yeah, additional
It
public
would just be
comment.
listening to the public, which would not have an effect on the negative declaration that the town board hasn't done.
Well, we wouldn't be voting on anything until next week.
Can we allow for additional written comment?
Just to clarify something, though, that there was no public hearing on the seeker. None is required. The public hearing was with respect to the establishment of the district. Excuse me.
So what Joe was saying is there is no requirement for this, so we have, there's no requirement of, does someone feel they have additional questions sitting here at this table, having gone through this process up to this point, having had the document now for, since the 10th, it was issued out to all of us. Does anyone have any questions while we have Dave here, or any questions that would change how you would feel on going forward with this project?
For me, I feel comfortable. It's more about the public. That's all.
It's an administrative thing, give everybody a chance, just read it online, and then come to a meeting. It's a
And
procedure.
it is posted online.
So yeah, all of this will be online, the entire report, right, will be online?
It already is.
It already is online, and so.
No, it's not. Only a summary is on
The whole piece, I believe, was published online today on the town website.
Yeah, so we'll give
Under the water section.
If it's not, we'll make sure it is tomorrow. and you guys can take a look at it, and we'll have some public comment, and we will not vote until next week, in fairness to everyone.
And I do want to make one more point too, because there was a conversation about having dialogue. I'm serious, if anyone wants to reach out to anyone individually, I really think the members of this board will be willing to sit with you and chat. Some people know more about this project than others, but on any issue, regardless, I'm certainly willing to do that, and I think everyone else is.
I am too.
I appreciate it.
Members of Plains Road for the last year and a half have asked about seeker. So, or to give them an opportunity to come the next week, absolutely right to do it. I'd love you to do that. Thank you.
And as we've notified all you, the secret process started, we let you know in December, the secret process had started. So we did inform everyone that the secret process has been going on now for going into the third month, December, January, the third month of the secret process. So it is a process that we have gone through, and I appreciate everyone reading through it. And if any of the board members have any questions for Dave, I would like yesterday ask him. Dave,
Will Dave's report be online as well as the secret booklet? Will Mr. Clauser's report be online as well as the secret booklet?
Yeah.
This?
Yeah. But we put that on, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
Awesome. We'll make everything available. So do I have a vote?
I don't need to vote on it, because
Until-
we're taking no action.
We'll take no action.
Taking no action, so there's no need to take a vote, just take no action.
All right.
But is anyone going to ask questions of Dave at this time? Is that what you're
Yeah,
suggesting?
does anyone have any questions of Dave while we have Dave here? Does anyone have any questions of Dave here at the board table after going through the sequel, or going through his shortened version of it there? This is a good time to ask.
Send an email, that's fine too.
Could I just ask one quick question?
Sure.
About the surface water, I wondered how long of a distance, what's the distance that the stream will be re-diverted, or will be diverted?
It's the distance of the reservoir. The upper reservoir is where we're taking most of the sediment out. Lower reservoir also. Are you familiar with turbidity curtains?
Yeah. With turbidity
Curtains.
curtains, yeah, I know the idea, to keep the
Yeah.
sediment from getting into the stream.
Right. Lets water through and keeps the gump out. You see it in oil spills.
Yeah,
actually.
so that's going to divert, it says it's going to divert a stream, right?
We are going to be doing that in August, or certainly the dry time of the year, and to be able to go from the intake, we're going to put some culvert in to be able to divert it around, and then put a turbidity curtain in to make sure that the stream stays
So it's
healthy.
diverted through a culvert, and then turbidity curtains.
On the outside.
So it's not, can you describe the water body that's being diverted? Is it deep or shallow?
The reservoir is about 5 feet deep. It varies. There's 3 reservoirs, upper reservoirs, and the much deeper one down by the water treatment plant.
We can get a tour. We can get a tour this week. I bet you we'll get a tour.
I'm going out of town, so I can't do it myself.
Wait till it gets warm.
So let's move on to the new business, and I would like to have Brian.
Well, and just so we have, I don't believe we need, because we had also added Water District 5, so we need to put that off then too, until next week also. So Water District 5 establishment needs to be put off, because we need to first
Okay, we'll
do
add
a
that next
sequence, so that absolutely has to be. So I don't believe we need you any longer, Attorney Moriello, or?
I knew someone would raise that. I don't think so. I see there was the matter of the grievance day on your agenda.
So we can go to the grievance law.
Let's go to the grievance law.
It's just a matter of setting a public.
And Dave, I don't know if we need you any longer. I think that's it. And then so those two we will have next week. We can't do Water.
Well, we're gonna do grievance law now, right?
Yes, we should do grievance law now, so we can, Dave gets to leave, and then we can Moriello leave with the grievance law.
I think you're only going to set up a.
Anyone have any questions on why we're changing it?
So we had a different day because our assessor was part-time and we had a conflict, and our assessor does not have a conflict anymore because we have a different assessor, so we're moving it back to the state standard. And we need to set a public hearing in order to change that law, and we're going to do that tonight, right?
In effect, what you're really going to do is repeal a local law that you did by local option. And by operation of law, that will put grievance day back in the way it is under the New York State statute. So there's nothing new to adopt, you're simply going to repeal it.
How long do we have to notice the public hearing?
Actually, it's got to be noticed at least 10 days prior to the public hearing, so. And Rosanna has the notice to go out so she can send it out. It doesn't seem to be a real rush on it, since I think the grievance day would be
Third Tuesday and
the fourth Tuesday in May. It seems like a long time off, but on the other hand, I guess if this got the public hearing held and it got adopted, there would be more notice to the public that grievance day now is changing from what it used to be, and they'll get the word.
I think when we close the public hearing, can we immediately then take action to repeal the law?
On this, I would say, yeah, once you put, there's probably not going to be any great opposition. You could do it, and then Rosanna will send the local law to the Secretary of State. It becomes effective immediately on file.
So we will discuss, we'll repeal that law, not this next week, but the meeting 1 month from today.
Probably would be, at that meeting, that would be fine. Yeah, I think that's probably enough time.
So just make a motion to set a public hearing for, what's that, the 17th? Or March 17th? I make a motion to set a public hearing for repeal of the law on March 17th at 7:15.
Great. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody does know what March 17th is.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes, it is.
But that's why we're not having our meeting on March 18th.
It's the only state in New York State not legally allowed to hold an election.
Say that again?
Yes, you hold an election every other day in New York State except for St. Patrick's Day.
Do it on Christmas?
Yes.
All right, so,
Now you know.
all right, let's keep grinding the wheels of government slowly. Brian, will you please come up and educate us? Help us. You can sit at the table if you'd like, and help us, please. Brian, Macalusa is our contractor for IT in the town, right?
Correct. That is correct.
We're very happy.
Thank you.
And you're going to help us out and explain our emails.
Yes. Yes.
So that we comply with open meeting laws and records.
And FOIL and all that stuff, yes. Well, it's come to my attention that through the assistance of other new board members and the like, that the email is currently being hosted off-site, which in and of itself isn't necessarily bad. But I'm not sure how technical you want me to go, because it could get quite technical, but there's a service provider that's probably been with the town since email first began.
Since we had AOL.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And so back then, it was not uncommon for that kind of situation to happen, where the mail is sitting outside of your organization and you pull it in and it goes into everybody's computer and stays there, which would be not a problem, except that you're an organization that has lots of people and you have to share information, and if you ever get foiled, the need to collect that information becomes kind of troublesome, because you have to physically walk around to every department, and maybe some people deleted things. There's no retention policy that was ever put in place to keep email for a certain length of time. There's no guarantee that that's been done, because it hasn't been probably formalized in any way. And because the mail provider, all he's doing is taking the mail, and then you're grabbing it and you're hanging onto it. And again, like I said, it's being put in everybody's physical computer and not kept centrally on a server that's easily managed, easily backed up, easily recovered in any kind of disaster, and also easily searchable from across departments, searchable on keywords. If you had a FOIL request right now it could be pretty hard to get all that information, and you might not get it because you wouldn't know where to find it, and you wouldn't have any records of where the email ever went, because it was never centrally managed and centrally kept. Nobody kept tabs on it. It was never backed up or archived in a way that was kept somewhere again, like as a records management system. Again, probably going back to the 90s when it first started, it wasn't an issue at that time, and now it is an issue. It's one of the bit more, even probably more so than paper. It's the single biggest legal document that is getting sent around to people. Things are getting posted on the web. It usually comes from email, and if you can't locate it, there's a whole host of reasons why it's raised a red flag for me. So what to do about it is the next question, and I wasn't told that I would need to be prepared for that part, but just to bring it to your attention that it was sort of the system that's in place right now, as far as I am able to discern at the moment, is that it's kind of antiquated. It needs to be reconfigured in a way that puts the mail into a central repository, makes it backed up and recoverable and searchable and shareable and all that stuff. And because nowadays it's so easy to search across a gigantic collection of emails and find keywords, you can't do that now. And so I recommend that maybe some further discussion be made, or I can come back with proposals about what you have, with more detail about what you have, where you could go, and maybe different scenarios that might work. So
I think that's great. Do we need to authorize funds for this, Gene?
Well, I think that Brian brings up a really good point that the system is probably hands-on.
Yeah.
However, I don't think it's going to cost us funds for you to create a proposal.
No.
But it will generate additional cost on top of his existing contract to do this.
Right. Like if you were to decide on upgrading the systems for your email, whether it's being done with the person who's currently hosting it, because he could upgrade his equipment and you could continue to use that service, but at your direction, he could upgrade things and be more sort of custom for you so that you could keep your records central.
Okay, but you always think outside of the box, and you know that we're a municipality, and I'm very confident that you're going to come up with something that works.
I will.
Okay?
Yeah.
But do we need to authorize funds for you to come back with this proposal, or we can?
No, I would just make the proposal. I have a pretty decent boilerplate idea of what you need. I've done it a number of times to know, I could give you an off the top of my head figure for what a server would cost, probably like $5,000 with this software and everything, and enough storage and put it in place. That's just an off the top of the head kind of thing.
Okay.
So I feel like if someone is watching this at home, they have no clue what we're talking about. So I want to just give an example of this, and this happens frequently. If someone does a FOIL request for our emails on topic X, the procedure right now is for Rosanna, as the FOIL officer, will let us know that we've been FOILed. They will accept the FOIL. FOIL is Freedom of Information Law, by the way. And it is the duty of those board members who have been requested of that information to turn over said information. And I'm guilty of this as well. What happens is I have a town email. If someone emails me right now, it forwards to my Gmail account. Presumably, I had thought that that original email that someone sends me to the town account is stored. And so anyone could look at it off a town server. It turns out up until, was it 2 weeks ago that got changed? So up till 2 weeks ago, none of those emails were actually saved on the server. So meaning that even if someone didn't trust the board members to look at it and someone had gone through the server, they would have been unable to do that. I'm not insinuating that anyone would do this, but I don't really think that it should be elected officials' role to determine what documents should go out like that, although at the end of the day, Rosanna still has the final sign-off to say if this is a part of the FOIL request. But back to the point that I make as well, so someone emails me on the town account, it goes to my Gmail account, I hit reply because I get my Gmail to my phone, and it is now on my Gmail account, and now I'm not even using the town's email at all. I do that and I'm not the only member, and I'm not the only elected official in the town who does it. It's about convenience, right? So I don't have to sign into something else when I'm sitting at a desktop to be able to do that. So what I'd like us to be able to do is update it so we can alleviate all of those situations. Because right now, really, I mean, we're not in compliance of open meetings law, and I think it's great that we're talking about that. We're not trying to hide anything, we're trying to find a solution.
Brian, if all of us who have the emails forwarded to our devices, if we were to use IMAP rather than POP3, would that overcome the issue of it disappearing into the ether?
It would, or could, excuse me, as long as the provider is giving you a big enough mailbox so that your mailbox can grow to a size that doesn't fill up and cause delivery errors, because that will happen too. And
oh yes, I have a terrible problem, and I'm losing emails. People, I think I'm sending it,
we spoke the other day.
It's not being sent. I think I've sent it, or I know I've sent it, but it still shows up in my drafts folder.
The mail system is getting a little clogged up because you've been given mailbox sizes that are so small by today's standards that you could probably fill up your mailbox in 6 months, and as an official.
And I think there's another practical issue that if it comes to our personal accounts, such as yours and I think Jeff's, that then our personal accounts become foiled.
They become
in
foilable.
total, not just.
They become foilable, but again, it goes back to that issue of it then becomes the obligation of that person with that email account to turn it over, and there's no server record at that point.
Correct.
So we've talked about that we rectified part of that issue.
By going to IMAP?
Well, no, we've
Just by
rectified
forwarding and not deleting.
that if you send it now, so now someone sends it to my town email address, it is saved. It never was before. But once I respond with my personal email, there is no record
on the town side.
Because you respond.
On the town side.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I did on mine was I set up, and I don't know the right terminology, but a separate section I use Outlook.
Yep.
And I have a Gmail account, which is my personal one, and I have another one that's town of, so that they are not commingled.
Yeah. It depends on how the client, quote unquote, is set up. Where if you're going to need to know about a complete discussion that includes sent and received messages, you can receive the messages, but you don't always know where the sent messages go, because if you sent it from here and you didn't send it from over there, where does it wind up being sent from, and how do you know where to get it? And so, depending on how all those things are configured, you could have a centralized thing, but because the mailbox size is so small, you can't hang on to it for very long. You couldn't hang on to sent messages for the next 10 years. You couldn't do it. It would probably fill up, and you'd have to archive them and put them somewhere. And then when they're archived, where are they archived? And how do you get them if anybody ever wants to foil you 7 years from now, 5 years from now?
I think this is very important.
Yeah.
Also because I think people are remiss in how we're organizing our files now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm guilty, like a lot of people, instead of putting everything in its right folder, you're like, oh, well, it's all in my email, and I'll just search my email for that document. And if it then disappears, you're like, oh, where did that go? And it's going to be even harder for someone else who wants to find it, who isn't necessarily me.
Yeah.
Right. So when I get thrown out of office in 2 years, the next guy, girl, is going to want to.
It's a perfect case scenario, because that's where you have people who are filling roles that could be filled by another person who comes in, and you have to take over where they left off, and you still have to have that record that went back in time, as far back as can possibly be. Then they take over that role, they would know who had their job beforehand, what they did, what the communications were, and so on. So, and that's something that is not, it is happening, but if your computer in your office burnt down or fried and the hard drive crashed, your data, the emails that were on that machine would go away. You wouldn't know where they were.
The ones that were from the town.
Correct.
Because it's so antiquated.
Well, because the centralized management of email is not being done. So
is my desktop being backed up in any way?
I have to look. I don't know, actually. I don't know.
We should look into that too.
Yeah, we should look at that. But the bigger picture is to have your email sort of on a central server, basically staying there, backed up in a number of ways, and recoverable, disaster recovery type thing, which you have for other things. You have a decent backup system for all the other things, but the email thing was the one thing that I noticed, that was the one thing that raised the flag for me. And so, yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt it.
That's okay.
I keep wanting to ask about this issue of I'm often not able to connect to server for literally a couple days recently, and that's the only way. I mean, I don't have
the town mail.
My town mail.
Yeah.
But I don't have it bounced to my Gmail. So there's no, I haven't, some days I'm just not able to get my town email. So is that, it says you can't connect to server, and I've never had email problems in my life. So
Again,
it's not,
that's a question that I should probably work with you on. What the reasons for connecting, I can't really speak to, but if you are having trouble connecting, it's either on his end or your end. You have to connect through the internet.
Am I the only one that has that problem?
You might.
Well, I don't go onto the town server because I've configured my Outlook to have it go into a separate folder.
Do you not do that?
There could be a couple of reasons for it, and they're easily fixable. So we could address that. Would be like a now kind of addressing a now situation, now problem. Okay. The bigger problem, bigger issue.
But if it is, because it's an antiquated server, then that is another reason.
I wouldn't say it's an antiquated server. It's the system, the way it's designed. Yeah, and the system, the server may not be old, but the model that you're operating
It was a
on.
great model, but times are changing, and we need to upgrade our model to.
Email is big
If we were to put in our own Microsoft Exchange server, you were kind enough to talk to me on the phone for a little bit, otherwise I wouldn't know these terms. We would put that in our offices, I presume, if we bought the server. And then how would we now have somebody hosting our email, A1.
A1 systems or something like that.
Whatever.
A1 Web.
A1 Web, thank you. Would A1 Web continue to be a part of the process, or?
They wouldn't need to be.
Okay.
They wouldn't need to be.
So we'd save a little money with that?
Yeah, you'd have the upfront cost of the physical purchase of the system, and then you would then amortize it over a certain period of time. Yeah.
So we can look at what the different costs would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
I just think that last comment, it's really important just for also government accountability as well. There is a recent report out of Ferguson that the Department of Justice did, and I did look at it, and specifically they go through the emails of the manager of the community as well as a number of other officials, and they're damning emails. The reality is if something like that were to happen in a community that had the system that we had, there would be an obvious temptation for those people to not turn over that information, and there would be no safeguards to prevent them from not doing that. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation moving forward. It's rectifying that.
When would you be able to come back to us? We only meet twice a month, as you perhaps know, and it's at the end of each month. Our next meeting is next week, and then not for another 3 weeks. Would you be able to?
I could come to you next week with something. Yeah.
We'll put it on the agenda.
I could come to you with something. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Have a good night.
So I can get in touch with you?
Sure. Do you have my contact information? I'll give it to you. Okay.
All right, moving along. Laura, would you like to talk about?
We want to do the annexation first just because we have people.
Oh, yes, sorry. Let's do the annexation. And then you guys can go home. Sorry, Laura. You're on salary.
If you can join them up here. It's okay. You own the property, you can join them.
This is like, I think, the back of the packet, right? Yep.
Yes, thank you for having us in. I assume you've all seen the package that I presented to the board, and to briefly explain what we're looking to do is there is a property at 152 Route 32 that sits, so the total property is approximately 1.2 acres. That sits, the frontage sits in the village, the rear of it sits in the town, and we're looking to annex the rear part that's in the town to the village, so we can develop the entire property in accordance with what we're trying to do in the front with the village. And that's pretty much what we're coming to you guys for your acceptance of that. We've spoken to the village. They're in favor of it, or from what I understand and what's been communicated to me, and we're looking for that approval.
So we've chatted a lot over the last few days, and I realize that the majority of this board was not here when this proposal started.
Right.
So you have your packets. I would encourage you to review it. And this guy's been great. If you have any questions, I can circulate their contact info, and I'm sure they'd be willing to answer any questions. What we did was, because boards have changed in between, the village board had changed, and the village board acted very fast on this proposal, and they approved it. So what I did is that I spoke to the mayor, and we have in writing too, if the new present mayor, if he felt that this was something that his board would presently support, and he said that he did. He wholeheartedly endorsed the proposal. He technically doesn't have to. We could go with the whole board's opinion, but I thought it was fair to go back and ask another board. I spoke to the deputy mayor as well. Trustee Tom Rocco was also on the board that originally approved it. So a majority of the board still agrees with that. Since then, we've talked about doing a joint master plan. So what we did was we reached out to the chair of our joint master plan committee just to make sure that this proposal wouldn't have an adverse effect on that going forward. And she also put in writing for us to review that she didn't feel that that would have an adverse impact. Those were two major hurdles that we had. That being said, what I would like to recommend is that we extend the request for an annexation, but we've now done this maybe 3 times. And what I would like us to do is extend the application with the intent of acting as well. So we're not just letting you guys kind of hang out there as well.
Absolutely.
I think that a 30-day extension would be appropriate, would allow board members.
I've looked it over. I'm very excited by this.
I just don't want to put anyone into the position of having to act on this with this being such a new item. There's a lot of history behind this. So I thought it would be appropriate to wait till next month. Unless people...
next week? Well, I think let's be careful. Yeah. There is history on this. There is general municipal law on this. There's GML 702, which everyone needs to be familiar with. I've met with you guys before. I've spoken to you several times. A couple of the big things, one of them is it needs to show a public benefit. And again, this does not demonstrate public benefit or meet the needs of how this is a public benefit. This doesn't, this came from past attorneys and engineers that we looked at this several years ago. You also need a majority of all of the owners in the property, which if you're the only owners of the property, then that would meet that part of section 702 of GML. Also, if you're going to do this in 30 days, what is proposed, and I'm just looking at a great drawing here, I think we'd be doing an incredible disservice to this community proposing this size structure without public input to the people that live on Sunset Ridge, people that live on Van Alst. This would certainly have a tremendous impact on what is a single-story residential neighborhood.
This is in the NBR district, right?
That right now would not be only in the one part of it.
But the front village part is in the NBR district,
the
right?
village part of it would also be allowed, not in the town part of it. So I'm not saying at all that I'm opposed to this. I have sat long enough here and seen that Route 32 North has been looked at as a corridor. I've spoken to you about it as a corridor that people have said, yes, let's grow this in a way that is reasonable to it. They're looking at, right at the STS station right now is looking to put in 4-story buildings. I'm not saying this is not a proper piece, but I don't There is a lot of work under both general municipal law and engineering and architectural that I believe we really should take a very hard look at before we approve that, up to and including distributing this out too is the same as you were doing any type of planning process. So, for example, when you're doing a planning process, by law, you need to notify all the neighbors within a radius that you are considering building a pool in your backyard. There's no reason why we should be doing this any differently. So,
But they wouldn't they?
Of course, the permitting approvals.
well, yeah, but now we're talking about changing what could happen in a large portion of here. It's changing the size of the zoning, so it's changing the availability of what could be developed on it. So these pictures could not be developed on just using the village section. You
But wouldn't they have to notify all the neighbors when they build anyway? Like, just because we're
Well, this couldn't be
allowing.
built though. This couldn't be built without the annexation. So it would be a much different structure without that annexation. If you think everyone's going to be fine, I would like to defer to all the neighboring properties. I believe their voices should be heard, and I don't believe a 30-day notice is even remotely close to a short enough period. I mean, each one of these neighbors should be notified of what's being looked at. Even looking at, there was some difficulties over turning the building from the church's house into a house. That went through a lot of processes with the church. So this is not an area that has not been. Austin Sunset residents have spoken out about even making minor changes to property near them. And that this would be certainly would be the largest structure built in that area. It's the Agway there is a one-structure building. Gateway is as you consider that a two-story structure. This certainly will tower over all of the neighboring properties and certainly will have quite an impact on traffic, both on Route 32 and potentially another piece of egress is needed onto Sunset. I think it would be, all that would be covered under traffic studies.
Doesn't look like there's egress on Sunset, but.
There isn't, no, I said maybe required. I mean, we haven't even gotten.
Do you have frontage on Sunset?
No. We haven't even gotten to zoning yet. Well, we don't know that. That's something that would be,
I'm
that's
sorry.
something that would be done in zoning.
I'm sorry, there's not zoning yet?
Well, no, because you're now going to be changing the zone.
The zoning's done.
This will be, it can't be done because you don't have the piece of property on the second piece of the property.
The town.
There's no impact.
The
There's no-
village zoning is done on the frontage.
Well, you haven't done the secret at all, so you haven't done any secret.
Well, but the secret is not determined on zoning, the zoning is done.
Secret would define on the traffic studies, would define on the parking.
Well, we don't need to argue about all
No, I'm
this
not
here.
trying to argue
This
it.
isn't-
I'm
That
just
would be
saying
done in planning, correct?
It is.
But I guess, what's an appropriate period of
I
time?
want to take this back too. If I recall correctly, we actually held a public hearing on this. So
Correct.
this is not a new conversation about this proposal.
Right, and the public hearing, because I was at it, and the public hearing, we asked that you bring us forward greater plans, greater definition of what was going to be developed, and I'm looking at the same stuff I looked at several years ago. This hasn't changed.
Correct.
You say, yeah, but this is what we requested as a board, and you didn't provide it.
Okay, what more would you like? I'm more than happy to request whatever you'd like.
We requested before. I would personally like to request greater build-out plans. What is it going to look at? What are we going to be going here? What type of housing? How many people would live here? What are energy sources? What are traffic plans?
It's not a planning
What would the impact be?
That's not like I guess we decide whether or not we let the village annex this, right? And
Well, no, we
have to have a public
annex
code
it
for
to,
it.
like, the village can't accept it yet until we annex it. So the village, they can say, now, they can vote now, they're very happy to vote now and say, we accept it, but they haven't accepted anything. They've
approved this.
They could approve whatever they want. I've been through annex, I was here for the annexation, so they have approved the exact data points on each one of these corners in the exact lot.
Yes.
And then their planning board will then decide whether or not, we're not a planning board.
Right, I agree with that, but we do have a responsibility to the residents on Sunset Ridge and Van Ross. If you feel that we don't, I'm sorry, I think we have a
No,
responsibility.
we do, and we have a process in place to inform them through the public hearing that we held, and then should anything be developed there, that the planning board will do the necessary public outreach that we do for anything else.
And again, I will just go with when Church of Nazarene looked to do, and the Jehovah's Witnesses Witness looked to do changes on their property, there was quite a lot of opposition to it from the neighbors on Sunset and Van Oss because of the changes they were looking to do, and they ended up not doing them. So I think taking this lot and changing it, I would like to hear from the residents there. If everyone feels it, then let's just take it and substantially change what is going to happen there without having any plans or without showing us, and when I say us, the community, the public benefit. I don't see how this benefits the town having it built out this way.
I do. I would say the benefit is that we have a need for housing, right? This fits in with the zoning of the NBR district really well. I like this a lot. I think that district is gonna add a lot to our town. When I look at the tax implications, when you say it doesn't benefit us at all, this gives us more tax dollars when it's built out than CVS does.
Yes and no. Residential costs you more. If each one of those apartments was filled with families and children, it would be a actually negative tax. That's a fact. So I can make Brad to show you anything you want. You know that.
But families need to live somewhere too.
But I have not shunned any families whatsoever from this community, and I am in favor of us building out wisely, and I'm a fan of building out 32 North. I don't see where this is a benefit to the town. And again, I can't go by a tax chart that says that it will benefit it. Well, could we get the same benefit by them using the exact lot that's already in the village and building up what they need in the village?
So here's what I'm thinking.
You can't get the density.
First of all, I don't think the CVS comparison is a great one, also because CVS would likely try to get the property taxes cut anyway. But you guys have to prove public benefit. That's clear. That's really the big hurdle we have here. You have produced that taxing info. Now, I believe, did you work on that with Councilman Barry?
No, I worked on that with Tricia Masterson.
Okay.
She had given me some figures based on some structures that we put in front of her.
So a lot of this is on you. You got to give us a strong argument that shows, and you've done some of that already, that this is a strong public benefit. We may have a philosophical disagreement here. Personally, just speaking for myself, I do think that we've notified that community by already holding a public hearing on this, talking about this, it being in the newspaper and on camera for well over a year now at this point. And should anything be developed there, all of those residents will have a say like we would for any planning board process, and I wouldn't want to micromanage that process. So from that standpoint, only speaking for myself, I feel satisfied in notifying the community, and we're going to notify them again because I'm sure Terrence will write something about it.
Furiously writing right now.
Sure.
So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to continue that argument for us. I'm going to circulate your emails, and so anyone on the town board can ask any questions in between so we can get this going. I personally think 30 days is appropriate. I mean, I know, Jeff, you disagree. I'm just curious if anyone else wants to chime in on that. And by the way, we can also look at 30 days, sit there as a board and be deadlocked and say, now we're going to move a little further. That's not my intention because I don't want to keep you guys hanging out there. But I'd like to hear from other people as well if they feel that 30 days is appropriate for this.
And again, I just ask you, don't even look at that.
30 days is fine with me. We should hear what the public wants to say about this, and maybe my mind will be changed, but right now I'm excited by this.
And I'm excited about the development also, and I would just say again, plan on even looking at it. So develop entire parcel with annexation. So I'll even round it up, $460 to $90,000. Those of you that have served on the school board, $90,000 pays for how many students?
It's roughly an average of $23,000 per student.
There you go. So $90,000 would pay for 2-3 students. So 3 stories of housing is 3 stories of housing.
So we should only allow 1-bedroom apartments in the whole town?
I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying is that don't try to say that the benefit is in taxes. That's not where the benefit is in. Yeah, the benefit
Well,
is not.
I could argue that the benefit is for environmental reasons. Density is good for, you know, and I'd rather have density than sprawl.
And
I'm a big fan of density. I
there's
agree with you.
economic justice as well in allowing additional housing in a community that has real housing issues, I mean, beyond that tax figure as well. So
And
you can really look at
it.
this.
Definitely I'm a big fan of it.
Is it by chance, you know, I mean, how much is this housing going to be? Is it going to be sort of middle income or?
Well, that's actually a good point, because I know that, do you have an affordable housing component? I mean.
Well, anything anything within the village has it, of course.
10%?
I believe so.
Okay, so 10%, so you would also include that, you'd have no choice.
It would have to be up to the
That's
planning
right.
board.
So
yeah.
that's actually important to note too, is that.
We're just asking to have this piece included within the zoning of the village, and let the village
And that's
determine
important to note
accordingly
that
what's proper for.
This will not be our planning board, this will be the village planning board, which we should note as well.
Exactly.
But yes, we do have that kind of economic justice.
How many units?
I mean, roughly, the frontage was about 50, and if we could do the back, another 50 would be 100.
So we get 10 affordable units.
Well, are you doing 10% or?
It might be 50%
I know, but
affordable
are
units.
you possibly
affordable
doing
housing.
more? I mean, what's your plan? Are you possibly doing more, or is it?
The
I don't
plan,
mean to put you on the spot, but.
yeah, I mean,
The numbers have to work still to make it, you can't make everything affordable. And what they've shown is that the best mix for affordable is mixed income and mixed use. Right? That's better for us as a community, it's better for the market rate people and the below market.
yes.
And is the, in the front, it would be retail, right?
The new zoning that the village has adopted,
Yeah.
that the frontage sits in currently, is retail within the front that has to be within 10 feet of the frontage, so you can't put anything back. It has to be a streetscape frontage retail with either professional on the second floor and residential above, or residential fully above. So that's what's going to be in the front. We're looking to put more housing in the backyard.
Can we put our town hall in here?
That's,
And
that can be
so the
negotiated.
retail, is there any, built into your plan, is there anything that would encourage local businesses to,
You know, there's
set up
nothing
shop there?
specific stated by the village code, but I would only assume that local retail would come in. The village code does
Oh, it could-
dissuade against larger,
Right, but that's large size, I think,
No
right?
plastic bags for them.
No plastic bags.
the village code is pretty specific on the new district.
But I'm just thinking, you know, that would be a benefit to the community if, right.
The NBR is on record now. It's been in a moratorium, it was scrutinized, and it's been completed. So that's what the frontage is. That's part of the NBR. We're just asking for the back to be incorporated into that. So the frontage will be what's according to the new code, which is pretty exciting stuff.
Okay, so I will send out your contact information to the board in the next day or so, and actually, I just looked at our calendar, I said 30 days, I'm gonna do it as 45, because that will cover our next 2 meetings for next week as well, or next month
Great.
rather. So I'm gonna make the motion that we extend your request for an additional 45 days.
Okay, great.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on this?
45 days from today.
From
which is
today.
in the middle of April. But we wouldn't have.
It would allow us to have 2 full meetings next month, which is what I'm hoping.
But it wouldn't get us to the first meeting in April.
I believe it would not.
So do we want to put it over till the first meeting in April? Otherwise,
Why don't
between meetings.
why don't we shoot for 45, and should we decide as a board that we want to do it longer than that, we can always extend it at another meeting. But I'd like us to allow these guys to know what's going on, because they've waited a very long time. Whether that's a yes or a no, I'd like to give them an answer.
Are you recommending calling another public hearing, or just some time to?
At this point, I personally don't think we'd have to have another public hearing. We did have one already. You guys have come a number of times.
Sure.
And we always accept public comment from people, and we would encourage people that do have some feelings on this to make public comment as well. And that's something we consider whether it's a legal public hearing or not.
So would the purpose of these 45 days be for the board, any members of the board to ask questions to you? How would you like those questions? Letter or email? phone call?
Email or phone call would be
Okay.
acceptable and appropriate for sure.
And then you can respond, and hopefully we can come to a conclusion within 45 days.
Perfect.
And is there someone on the board that we should direct questions to if because they're more familiar with the project? Would it be Dan or Jeff or?
We're technically the only people who've been here.
Yeah.
The point person among us.
Would anyone, yeah, that's what I mean, because I have some questions.
To
I don't
coordinate
want
all
to
the
reinvent the
questions.
wheel, but I'd like to, be able to.
I mean, you can certainly, we can chat about it.
And I think also we need to though bring in, I don't know if we ever legally held, and I'd have to go back and look, I don't know if we ever legally held, because we never had a formal annexation drawn up. I know we've never had a formal annexation drawn up. So I don't.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by a formal annexation?
It actually, because I've been through, I've been here to annex property. It would actually have all the data points drawn for the exact property going.
A survey you're referring to?
Absolutely, each exact survey of it.
Does that just, yeah, okay, I can provide.
But that needs to be provided in a legal document and it goes.
Yeah, that was provided, sure. That the
don't-
application was.
I will also speak to Joe Moriello too to make sure.
Yeah, I would give it to the
Spend some
Senate.
turnover, let's pull together all the items we have received, and so you don't have to duplicate it.
But Dan, I
That's
gave
fine.
Dan a whole file.
Yes.
Have you saw that file?
I saw
I gave
it.
Dan a whole file last year, so everything is in that, I believe. And I have not looked at it since last year or 2 years ago.
Could you let me know what the date of the public hearing was so I can go back and look at it?
Off the top of my head, I do
No,
not.
I don't mean extemporaneously, but if somebody just let me know.
March 27th.
And if I recall, was there any comment?
No.
There was no public comment. I do think, that's okay. I do think it would be good too, I mean, regardless of that, to notify the neighbors, even if it's just an informal message from the supervisor's office or whomever. But we'll work on that in between the 45 days.
I think that's a good
But
idea.
yeah, since 2014, we just kept extending it and because we never got anything beyond this. So I will say again,
And I think
I'm
we
not
made-
against density, and you guys both know this, and Richie and I discussed this, I'm not against density at all. It's just, it was the public benefit and also more defined plans of how is this going to benefit the town? What is the town going to look like in that part of the community for Route 32? And I totally agree with both of you. This is the best place to run services out. This is a great way to run sewer, a great way to run water. So I totally agree with you on that. And I'm a big fan of density also. But let's just make sure we're putting the density in a community that wants it, in that part of the community.
It's already there, right? This is already in the village, so.
Well, there's no density because this type of density would not, the piece that would be built would not be able to be built on that front piece.
Sure.
Back piece, you
You could build in the front.
You could build in front, but it wouldn't be this size structure, it wouldn't have this type of density, it would be a much smaller project. It would be.
It would be half the
would-
size.
So it would
look
have,
more-
it would have the same density, because
It would
the
not have
area
the same
would be.
amount of houses.
That's a good point, it would have the same
The
density.
would be the same, the area is twice as big.
Relative
and-
to its
and
size, it would have the
size
same
would be twice as
density.
big, So density stays the same.
No, so relative to its size, so now you're talking about you would put in, if you did it
Got a motion.
without.
Let's gotta move on, man, I'm gonna be here all night.
Yeah, no, this is all great, but.
Well, it's not all great, because without,
Well, no,
it
but
is
it's
not all great,
Robert's rules of order,
without density.
but this is not relevant to the question on the floor.
To me, it is relative.
But you're out of order because that's
I'm not out of order at all. So without annexation,
Actually, yes, you're relative.
what the difference would be is, so you're saying it could be with density, it would be
The density
with
on
both
the
of it.
front side.
Would be only half of it. It would be half of what you get with both.
Correct.
So it's not like he's gonna
No,
get
they just
100
wouldn't
units.
build it as much.
You would, right, as I'm saying, so you wouldn't get 100 units on the front unit.
You'd get 50 units.
50 units, and I agree, so it would be a different, it would give you different size.
This is not relevant to the motion on the floor, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Come back, please, bring it in.
Yes.
Have a great night, guys. Thanks for all your effort.
See if we can get Jean and Laura out of here.
Laura, good luck.
Before, weren't you sick today? Weren't you sick today? We should,
Well, the business to attend to.
well, so let's attend to your business. So Gene would like some budget modifications. Today? No, I'm behind today, actually. That's the problem. But we have it in the packet. I got the email saying you were sick.
Yes, that's true.
But I'm glad you're here. Do you still want to do these budget modifications?
Yes, I do.
Great.
Thank you for raising.
And
There, it's the purchase orders,
modifications to monthly purchase order list,
right?
right? And all of these are online, right? So I do not need to read them, right? Or I am happy to read all of them.
They're in Kathy's.
They're in the board packet and they're posted online. So we are just kind of tell me what we're doing. We're
Okay, they're just changes to the monthly, quarterly, or annual list that you adopted during the reorg meeting. And apparently, as we progress, departments come up with changes to what was initially set up. That's all it is. And I try to highlight whether I'm replacing it, or whether I'm eliminating it, or whether I'm adding it.
Is the net result 0
Oh, yeah.
or close there too?
Or not at all.
Mhm. So we're not tapping into
No, I'm not tapping into
contingencies?
anything.
Okay.
No.
I make a motion to adopt the modifications to the monthly purchase order list.
Second?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Did you have anything else besides the budget modification? Oh, we have, the next page is fireworks bank account.
Oh, okay. So the fireworks bank account, can we table that till next week? Because Joe Mariella is going to give me a resolution so we can do it formally.
We will table that till next week.
And Neil, I want to thank you for reaching out to our neighboring town Gardner, and I got a call that I understand that Gardner is not interested. So.
We're building a wall.
But I want to thank you for reaching out to them.
They're going to pay for it.
Who's going to pay for it?
Gardner, apparently Gardner will, but thank you for reaching out to them. I was very disappointed to find out, I got a call that they were not interested in joining us.
Well, didn't that
Maybe next year.
The reason?
Maybe next
So
year.
like we asked
The reason.
The reason was they were upset that we gave them away in 1853. It's
That's
still,
not true.
there's a lot of animosity.
We asked after they'd already done their budget. So next year we'll ask soon.
Yes, so thank you, I appreciate that.
So we have a client information change form.
A census. A
Census.
census. And requesting that we change the name of the administrator to Lynn Carge, because the administrator is Susan Zimmer. We have one client only who chooses to close the account. So first we have to change the administrator.
So we're
And
changing.
we need to close the account.
I make a motion to change the administrator and then close the account. Is that right?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We need requesting authorization for 2 town employees to attend the New York State Government Finance Officers Association. The cost of the conference will be $390. Cost of the hotel is an additional $846. And we need somebody for a webinar for financing basics payroll claims. These all seem like good.
Is that a motion?
I make a motion to authorize the funds for the New York State GFO attendance.
Second.
And Gene, just for conversation, I don't have my budget in front of me, that's budgeted.
It is budgeted.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded.
I think Dan already.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. That's it, Gene.
Feel better, Gene.
Well, if you would entertain me when you're done to have a 3-minute executive session.
Okay, can we do the Laura so she can go?
Absolutely.
And then we'll do the fireworks. So Laura, we're gonna bid opening surplus equipment.
Yes, did you all get copies of the results?
It was in the email.
It was in an email, and I made extra copies, and I gave them all to you. But anyway, there are 2 apparent high bidders. Don Hughes.
So we had 2 things out for bid, the tub grinder and the dump truck.
And the dump truck.
And were we selling them as a pair, or could we?
No, they were actually not being sold as a pair. One person did bid on it like that, but no, it was 2 individual items. Some folks did bid on each of them separately. Some people just voted on one piece of equipment. The prices we got back we're very happy with. The prices of metal are terrible. If we took the tub grinder in, we might only get a couple $100s for it. The high bidder was $3,050, and I did call him, and he's interested in coming out tomorrow as long as we do the final authorization and pick it up. Likewise with the dump truck, that was bid out by, the highest bidder was a local tree company. And again, it was a good price for the vehicle.
And so you're asking us to accept the highest?
To accept the 2 highest bidders.
And are they $3,000 and $2,200?
Yes.
And, absolutely.
I know, right?
Thank you for these bids.
Chris said we should have, 500, we would have been.
Well, let's just be very happy.
Very happy. Let's not have any public record. I make a motion to accept the high bids.
He wanted to pick it up.
Seconded. And I just want to make sure, and Gene, do we have a process to make sure we have a clear check or how the money is accepted? Do you and Laura have a process for that?
The
$2 bills.
Hughes, I think, wants to pay cash. We can take cash, certified check, or credit cards.
There you go. Thank you very much.
The gentleman picking up the tub grinder is going to bring a certified check.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Cash at the recycling center.
I'm supposed to, but I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to run up to Gene and throw it at her.
They have to be there before Gene goes home.
So I make a motion.
Yeah, you did already, I seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much, Laura, for doing that.
And I did put in prematurely for budget modification. I talked to Jean earlier, she wanted me to pull my jets, we don't have the money in our hand yet, so.
I told her she had to collect the money.
That's right.
Modify the budget.
Thank you, Gene.
There's no money in there.
No, there's not, so there's nothing really to, I guess we can't do it before next
We
week.
can do it next week.
Okay.
So Gene, do you want to go into executive session quickly, and then we have the fireworks?
For the purposes of?
I guess contract negotiations, I just want to resolve what we talked about.
So I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for contract negotiations. I'd like to
Seconded.
invite Gene and Lucci into executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to come out of executive session?
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So action was taken, do you want to walk us through the action?
The action was taken, if you remember, several weeks ago at the last meeting, we had some mix-ups with the boot allocation for the highway department, and we released Jean from her duty of processing those checks. We have resolved that problem. We are now authorizing Jean to begin processing the checks, so the highway workers will all receive their $220 boot allowance as a check without any taxes taken out.
I ask a question on that?
Yep.
Without any union representation, you didn't feel it necessary to consult with the union?
I thought we had talked about that, but if you want, we can wait on this and I can talk to Mike.
I sit on the other side. I would strongly, actually I think at this point it's actually too late, but I would strongly talk to the union before you make any board decision. They're already escalated their.
So we can go, do you want to go into executive session?
Well, just real quick, the only thing is and don't get Chris is on our negotiating team.
I guess
so,
my impression was that the union was upset because we had promised that everyone would receive $220. And when we did it the first way, they were not receiving $220 because taxes were being taken out. We changed it so that everyone will receive $220.
Chris, do you think that we would benefit from a quick executive session? You want to do it quick, I'm just, again, it's changed 3 times. Each time the union was never notified. Now it'll change again, you're going to make the policy tonight. I assume that's what you're doing.
I guess
Tomorrow morning, how you go in and tell them, or you could.
I thought we were trying to, my impression is we were trying to make a policy that fit with what had been originally negotiated with the union, that everyone would receive $220. But if that's not the case, we don't have to do
Well, the original contract, which we're still bound by, that was a Teamsters contract, states by voucher or by receipt.
Okay.
Now you're putting it in a check, which they
then we will
bargain on.
Then we will wait.
I mean, it's just, I don't want to see you wind up back in the same place again.
Why don't we go to executive session? I make a motion to go into executive session and make sure that we don't mess this up.
And invite Chris Marks.
And invite Chris Marks and discuss the boot allowance.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Want us to accept these warrants, Gene? Make a motion to.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to
Yeah.
come out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, Jeff's not here, but so we talked in executive session about this boot allowance kerfuffle, and I should be more careful with my words, but we are now in violation of what we initially agreed upon in our contract with the highway crew. And I make a motion that until we can sit down with the union rep and the stewards, that we go back to following the language that we have agreed upon in the union contract for the way that we will disperse the boot allowance.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And so, Gene, what do you want me to do with these warrants? Accept them? Make a motion to accept them?
The warrant for the town, yes, please.
So you all have a copy of the warrant for the town in your packet? And I make a motion that we accept this warrant.
I think you have to legally give the amount, right?
In the amount of $1,780,960.74.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Gene?
There goes your first 1.7 million, man.
It goes fast. So the 4th of July celebration, Kathy has put this together, and we have a contract with the Ulster County Ag Society for renting the fairgrounds, and a contract with the American Fireworks Company. And I'd like to make a motion that we send this contract to them and have them sign it.
Sweet. Second.
Just the only discussion is, you have a date? Yeah, there's a date on that.
July 1st.
But, and when do they want their check? Do we need to give you authorization to sign a check for deposit prior to the next warrant? You might need to do that. They usually want their money really quick. Can I read about Chris?
Do you want to approve and authorize prepay to cut the check?
Yes,
For the deposit?
And can we make a friendly amendment to that, authorizing the supervisor to do a prepay for the amount of the deposit that's not under, they're going to ask, they ask for it really early always.
amount of the deposit agreed upon in the contract.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's not that much. They do want the deposit.
$75, which is 10% due at signing.
There you go, for
Is
$75.
that for the fireworks or for the Ulster County
This is
admin?
the fairground.
That fairgrounds.
Okay, so we need a prepay of $75 for the fairground. I am looking up the
Fireworks.
fireworks right now.
So let me just agree to what's in the contract.
All right, we'll agree to what's in the contract.
Yeah, it's in the contract.
Yep.
Great.
So it's all amended. I second it.
Discussion? No? Frank, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Sure.
Change of administrator for, we did that one?
Yep.
Fairgrounds, fireworks. We have to keep going here. We have the DMV motion for the agreement between the New York State DMV and for room rental.
Yeah, they do this every year.
Yeah.
Standard.
The DMV will pay us. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We have a consulting services agreement for a senior coordinator, is that right?
Yeah.
This is for Kathy Puglisi, hereafter consultant. She's going to be our senior coordinator, and do I have a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
And Gene, did we just leave that off in there? Kathy's?
Yeah.
We did.
Nothing where?
Did we leave it off in air in naming her as?
We didn't have an agreement.
Oh, we didn't have an agreement. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Right.
So,
Great,
yeah, we went, Arlene and I went through I think it was Arlene, right? We went through the list and we found the ones that were missing. We're also missing one for the videography, which is the next,
Do we vote this down electronic camera?
yeah. So, do
All in favor for Kathy?
Aye.
motion passed. We also have a, one for USAI Video to make it the official, so that we have an official contract with them. So we had some out-of-date ones. So, a second?
Seconded.
And
All in
we're
favor?
authorizing you just to sign the contract then, or just, we're actually naming them?
We had an out-of-date contract and we've just updated it.
So we're authorizing you also
Authorizing them to
to
execute
sign
the
the
contract.
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have parade application approvals for the New Paltz Youth Baseball Association and the Church Council.
I'd like to move them both together.
Second?
Second, because traditionally we have not charged the baseball.
Well, the baseball.
No, because they are the volunteers.
They have
volunteers.
The church
I recall a large argument.
does pay
But,
for police services.
right,
Very.
The police have agreed to volunteer.
Yeah, that's what they've always.
I think for both of them, and if we don't get enough volunteers, the town will pick up
The town policy, if I recall, was that the reason why we didn't do it for free was because you had to pay to be a part of the baseball or softball team. And that's why we didn't think it was entirely what we designated as, I think, a community parade. I'm looking at Gene, 'cause I think you were there when we did that. I remember a massive fight over it, but it's fine.
Okay, so yeah, the Baseball Association is always, the police department has always volunteered their people, so that's always been done at no fee.
And I think that's the case this year as well.
Yep.
And, yeah, and the church, again, we'll have to wait to see. So can we approve that without the dollar amount in it? Yeah. Good.
So we have a motion and a second.
No, I think it was already made as a motion.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
I want to discuss the snow closing cancellation policy. Right, so right now, whether or not the town meetings or the board meetings or anything else are held is separate from whether or not the town hall is closed. And I would like to just have a general policy of town hall is closed for the day, board meetings or anything else, it follows the same rules as the town hall.
And the town already follows the school?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no.
Only in a closed.
But what
There's
if,
a 2 hour delay for the town.
What if the weather is perfect by 7:30 though?
I think when I was on the school board, that's how we operated. If the school had closed, we did not meet. So it's not out of the norm for us to do that.
And it would be rescheduled, it might be less, well, I mean, obviously, if it's unsafe, so the idea is that it would be easier to just know, right? That's the
Yeah, I'm
idea?
thinking just for simplicity, that if the town hall's closed, everything is closed.
I think I would weigh that against the inconvenience of finding another day, because we all know this is a day that, you know, and the town knows, people, Terrence knows. He's free on Thursdays, obviously. So that's just a thought, you know, we might want to weigh that.
So this is a discussion.
Because obviously the meeting just doesn't not happen. We can't just have, you know, we'll have to find another day. So it's only in those rare maybe cases where the weather was not good enough to open town hall, but then it's really fine by 7:30.
It doesn't snow anymore anyway.
And you're still going to have the problem of times when the weather gets bad after work hours, you know, or after
That's
4
true.
o'clock or whatever, and then so it can't be, we should have a system for,
All right, well,
I'm
we
from
can keep,
Buffalo, I
we
know
can
about
keep,
snowmen.
we can keep discussing it.
Right.
Sorry.
So the other thing, you know, we had talked about the fire department use of the town village hall offices. And so I talked to the fire chiefs, and they are less interested, but they said they could maybe still use it. It depends what we decide. I talked to Tim, and we agree that I would like to have a motion that we allow the fire department to use the space that we're not using underneath Village Hall. And my recommendation is that they have it for free. You know, they run into burning buildings for free. We can at least give them a non-burning building for free. So my proposal is that we allow them to use that space, and if we need it back, we give them, you know, 30 or 60 days notice, and they remove their items.
Do we know if the police or documents that are stored adjacent to that are at risk by doing this? Is the police department okay with?
They shouldn't be. There's, the bathroom is down that hallway, which is, you know, the
Yep.
staff uses. Stuff for the PD is behind them. At the very end of the hallway, in separately locked rooms
The
with
door
no
at
other
the end of the
access.
hallway with the opening above the door? Isn't there?
There's a, you go down a couple steps,
Yes.
there's a locked door.
Oh, okay.
That's open
I've not
door.
been there.
Then you
Okay.
go through a hallway
Yes,
where
yes.
there's the detective.
You go down to the
then
bathroom.
You hit another set of locked doors.
Yes.
Yes, those locked doors where the files are.
And the police feel that's reasonably secure under that circumstance? Cool.
And not everyone has access. This is just for, I think, the chiefs and maybe admin.
I think even better, and when also Marty went down and spoke to Becky, they were fine. I think just as long as there is some type of control that is kept to the supervisor's office of the keys.
Yes.
So there's limited access to
Those are punch pads.
officers.
So I'm gonna actually second it. I don't think you're gonna second.
All right,
Or second, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
and now we can have discussion. All in favor?
Well, is any,
Any more discussion?
No, that,
I'm good.
I've had it, sorry.
Great, motion carried.
Aye.
Aye.
Now we have additional items. Robert's rules.
So, yeah, just very fast, most boards at their reorganizational meetings adopt Robert Rules of Order. We did it on the school board, most towns do it. I've served on the town board, we have not done it. I just think it would be beneficial to at least create the appearance we're trying to do that. So, it's late, so I don't know if people want to have a large dialogue. I don't really see this as a controversial issue, but I would just like to make a motion that we try our best to adhere to Robert Rules of Order and empower the supervisor who legally has the responsibility to do so anyway, to conduct the meetings in that manner.
I'd second it.
Just as discussion, can we please be provided with copies of Robert's Rules of Order?
I'm sure that they're
Or
on the
online.
state website, but I will send everyone.
Yeah.
And by the way, every municipal board does it differently. You don't have to do a strict Robert's Rules of Order. Every board has its own culture. But we should at the very least try to adhere to what their, law is.
Well, I'm not opposed to
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I just
no,
need to become more familiar
I
with it.
agree.
Same here, obviously.
Without doubt.
Would that clarify the issue of people coming up and speaking and us not engaging in a
It's
discussion?
more for a governing of our board.
Mhm.
I don't actually think that a public comment in that way would come up that way, because they don't have to operate under those guidelines, it's about us.
Well, I know the planning, just to, clarify, I know the planning board operates that way, and I have seen, it doesn't always work out well when there's a lot of back and forth, and then, who are you responding? It's not always fair who gets a response, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a board policy.
So-
If we wanted to change that rule, we could. We've operated under that, and the village board at times has not. They have done a dialogue, and that's worked with, I think, mixed success.
So our board policy is that that is our board policy?
That's how we have operated.
Okay. During both public hearings and public comment, that's how we should assume that's, I just think it's not always been followed. That's why people are used
Correct.
to,
It
like,
has
and they have, I
And there's been
understand.
certain circumstances where I think it was beneficial as well, that we did create
Right.
the dialogue, but it makes awkward situations
It
later
does.
when you opt not to.
Right, because it's not
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
but at the same time, I would just.
Yes, allocation of funds.
It would be
Yes.
nice if we could do our best to address things at some point.
Yeah, I think that we should definitely have that conversation at some point, but, yeah. Any other discussion on this? So all those in favor?
Can we all get copies of it? I mean, Robert's Rules of Order, they, as well-meaning as they are, can also be.
They're like this thick. I don't want to have to read a huge.
But they do have their ups and downs. I mean, they basically, the tenet of Robert's Rules, and they go back, and I'm sure Dan, you can tell me the exact era or date, but it was 1800s. And I believe we're in the 15th or 12th or 30th edition of it. But it's to start a meeting on time, end your meeting on time, identify who is there, and have someone take notes, was the general intent. And they have now since been turned into, very often, to the point you were making, which is they can actually discourage discussion. You can use Robert's Rules for, at times it can be used for bad and not good, is my fear of Robert's Rules.
And so my comment would be that I think we should adopt it, but I think we should also be willing the goal is that the meetings run more smoothly and that everyone has a chance to have their input and that it's all fair. And the goal is not to use Robert's Rules for evil, so we should be willing to change them if we're not happy with them. I'm just trying to do it so things go more orderly, but obviously I can't even follow the modified Robert's Rules, but this will maybe help.
I'm willing to delay this. Every board has a different culture. It's something that is almost always adopted at a reorg meeting. We just simply have not done it. It's something that I noticed as a simple oversight, and that's why I thought it would be good to do that. We'll establish our own culture as a board, but at least use that as the base that we'd like to have some semblance at our meetings, and presently we have no base to do that.
I don't believe the village uses Robert's Rules, or they do. I don't believe, we've never used Robert's Rules for as long as I can remember. It's not as used by boards as often just because, again, Robert's Rules can, and again, to your point, it's a very large tome, and it's been around since 1800s, 1700s probably. And there are, unfortunately, what's been added to it can bring about, unfortunately, bad.
I can see that, right? And that's not my intention, right?
So I'm not sure of the intent of doing it then. If we don't feel we have bad now, I don't see the intent of it. If our intent is to have the culture of, again, the original part of it was written by an engineer, and I think that's who Robert was actually, an engineer, was start a meeting, and when's it start, when's it end?
Yeah, we have an agenda, you start, you end.
Who's going to be there, who's going to take notes, and good night.
I'd like to have a little bit of time, even if it's just a week, to become
All right,
somewhat
so-
familiar with it.
So I'd like us to talk about it then. So I think I made a motion, I'll second it, so let's table that for our next meeting.
Thanks.
And now the last item, unless I forgot some, is the allocation of funds for demolition.
Yes, and just as an overview, previous board had wanted to take this in bits and pieces as we needed more money for the next step in the process of getting to demolition. We would authorize monies, but we have seen that that's not a very efficient way to do it. And I'm wanting us to allocate let me back up a step. We're using as our source of funds proceeds from the lease of the cell tower property. That totaled $421,000. To date, in our bits and pieces approach, we have allocated $135,036 of that $421,000. That included $60,000 that was allocated for non-demolition related costs, specifically for architecture and legal expenses associated with a proposed new town hall or municipal center. This leaves unallocated funds of $285,937,000. I'm asking that those be allocated to the demolition of the old town hall.
Second.
Are there any
That's intended as a motion.
I'm sorry.
And I could give you more information.
No, I
Some of those have already been, none of those have already been allocated. Those are unallocated funds that I'm proposing be allocated to the demolition, and I make that as a motion.
Second.
I have a discussion point. So what was the rationale for, doing it? Well, what is the rationale for doing it this way?
And we found it was very inefficient to do it by bits and pieces because of when we meet versus when work needs to get done. For example, right now, the next step in the process is for Doug Whitaker and Dave Clauser to write a plan of remediation and a plan for demolition, and then those plans would go out to bid. But we haven't yet authorized any funds for them to do that. And then, so they would end up being on hold for a period of time until the board got around to allocating some more funds for that, for those steps in the process. And this will make it more efficient to get the work done without having to keep stopping doing what they're doing, so that we can now authorize some monies for them to take the next step, and then stopping so we can then authorize some funds for the next step.
So what is going to be the initial, or the end amount that will need to be spent?
Sure, good question. We have put together a budget that, and I say we, even though it's in my computer, it's been based on conversations with Chris Marks, with Stacy Delared, Dave Clauser, and Doug Whitaker. And I have from that developed a revised budget, which I circulated to all of us by email. If you got my emails, because of problems with my email, if you didn't get it, please let me know. And we have said that we expect $357,268 to be the cost of demolition from what we've already done and plus what we still have to do.
With the
So
good
it'll be
chunk
more
of
than the
that.
amount that's put in the fund, so.
This would allocate within a few dollars all of the rest of the $421,000. Am I answering?
That does, it answers, yeah. And if there's any extra,
It would just go back to the cell tower fund, and we would then decide what we're going to do with that. If we found other sources of funds in the interim that could be used for some of this, well, then we wouldn't have to use all of the cell tower funds, and we would allocate them someplace else.
And hopefully we'll just put all of this money into the whole project and get this money back.
At the point where, assuming we build another building, then these would become a cost of that project and would presumably then become part of what we bonded, and the $421,000 would come back to the town for us to then determine what we should do with those.
Okay. So, second discussion, call the vote.
I think we did.
Well, we just call the vote. Aye.
Aye.
Any other business we may have missed? I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Aye.